There is this great, deep, dark secret that I have been hiding for years that is neither great, nor deep, nor dark, nor is it secret, nor have I been hiding it. I was once called Robert. That was my name. Roll the intro. Hello there, I'm Rafael de Furia, back at it again for another Friday night for another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. This week I wanted to explore an idea that I've mentioned a number of times and that we've gone into in a number of episodes. And that is about how some of the smallest things can be some of the biggest things that you can experience abroad, but also take it a little bit further than just that. And yes, like I said in the pre-intro, there was a point in my life where my name, quote unquote, was Robert. Recently, I got introduced to this idea, this thing online that I guess it made sense that I'm not the only person who had to do this, but back in the States, having a quote unquote exotic name made it so that if I went to, say, call up and order a burger, or go to any type of place where they would call your name, where you had to come up and get the food, then I would have to repeat my name a bunch of times. And I remember one time in particular where I was calling on the phone and the person just couldn't understand my name. I said, Rafael. What? Rafi. Rafael. Huh? Who? He? What? And then I was like, all right, this person's clearly not getting my name. And I'd been going through years of this. I was young, but I had already at that young age been through years of who, what, how do you spell that? Rafael, Rufiel, Rufio. I've had that from Hook, but Rafael was just for whatever reason difficult. And I don't blame anybody. It's not an average common name, at least in that part of the world. But in that one particular call, I was like, you know what? Let me just name some random, more common quote unquote name that this person might understand. So I just was like, first name that came to me with the letter R, Robert. Oh, Robert. Oh, why didn't you say that before? Because it wasn't my name. But from that point onward, I realized that to make certain interactions go a bit more smoothly, I needed to use this pseudonym. So no, Robert is not my actual name, nor has it ever been my name. Rafael, like I've said a number of times on this show, and de Furia, these are actually real names of mine. Robert has never been, but to get through certain experiences. And so having been abroad in different countries, it's actually, especially Portugal, for me, oh my gosh, it's amazing that I don't have to explain my name here. Maybe I'll have to explain that there's a space in de Furia, but even that's not common. But people be like, oh, that's an Italian name, right? It means the same thing in Portuguese, no? And it's yeah, actually, there's some extra nuance in Italian, but basically, yes. Again, getting to this idea of sometimes the smallest things at the end of the day can be actually things that make a big impact. There's something to be said for being able to just simply say your name at an office, at a doctor's office, at whatever it may be, even if you're just ordering food or an interaction and the person just understands what you're saying. You don't have to repeat it 5 times, or they don't have to ask you how to spell it when checking into a hotel or whatever. Not that I'm traveling, but at this point in my life, as I've mentioned in a few episodes, I think I'm at a point where I'm trying to make things as easy as possible and decomplicate as much as possible. I haven't gone into really details about that particular idea, but I think I've dropped hints about it. I hope I have, because I've been meaning to. But at this point in my life, I feel as though that's very important. And if you're coming from another part of the world and you're moving to the opposite side of the world, you will have to think about, okay, do you have an average name in your country? Is it something that's really easy to understand? And I'm not saying that, this is something you need to consider about the realities of moving abroad. This is not one of those things that I would say is going to make the biggest difference at the end of the day, but it's a reality because it's not something you can, I'm not going to say you can't change it depending on what country you're from. Maybe you can change your name, but there's complications that come along with that, of course. But this is something that I would say is very worthwhile having a think about. How much kind of friction do you go through in your day? How much friction are you willing to accept in your day? And how much is it that will actually make the difference? Is there going to be a certain breaking point that you'll have where you'll just have the straw that breaks the camel's back, or maybe your own, God forbid? And that's kind of what I'm talking about. Who cares about the name? I mean, at this point in time, I've been in so many different countries where my name is pronounced so many different ways. I almost don't even care how it's pronounced, as long as the consonants are roughly in the right place. I'll probably respond to it. The vowels, okay, that's a different thing. Even sometimes the consonants, the way that they're pronounced. But for example, I can go to Germany, and if I pronounce it with a German accent, they're going to be able to write it down on a piece of paper. If I go to Spain, the same thing. Portugal, just change up the accent in each country. I will say in Italy, though, I did have the experience where, okay, my last name, Furia, Italian, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But my first name, I would have to sometimes repeat that if I was having to give it for whatever reason. And they would say, oh, Rafael. I said, no, Rafael. And like putting the emphasis on that L, because I'm not Rafael. I don't know who he is. He's not me. He's some other guy. Probably a good dude, but he's not me. But again, to get back to my point a little bit, it's important in life to be able to realize what your limits are, where they are, and how far you can push past them, or how far you can get close to them without really feeling anxiety or stress from that. And this can come in many different forms, because many people, especially who are leaving the US, I'm just going to kind of frame this around an individual who is leaving the US, because the majority of you are from the US that watch and listen to these episodes of Not Your Average Globetrotter. And so most of you, I can make the assumption, because many of you have told me, is that you are leaving the US because you are looking for a different lifestyle. You are looking to get away from certain aspects of what the US has to offer. I mean, even I mentioned this in a recent episode about hustle culture and about how in the States there's just so much pushing and unnatural pushing forward in life that it just doesn't lend itself well to being able to have a really great work-life balance. However, in other parts of the world, there is this ability to lean into that a little bit more. If you're somebody who's working, will you be able to earn the same income and maybe have the same freedoms and flexibilities? Maybe not. But is that worth trading for maybe even some of your mental sanity? Just how you can get through to the age in life where you can potentially even retire. Although for somebody in my age bracket, even trying to retire through the American Social Security system, let's see if it's still there by the time those of us who are around my age get to that age of retirement. Fingers crossed. Ooh, shocking news. Rafael doesn't have complete faith in the American Social Security system. I know, big shocking news. But will you be able to create that balance in life that you need? That is the question. And this is why I say also again that research is extremely important, because I can share with you all of this information about living in Braga, living in Merano, living in Rome, living in wherever, these places where I've lived, for those of you who've kept up throughout the years. And also, by the way, I know there are some of you who've been watching since the very early days, and I want to let you guys know that I really do appreciate you. I appreciate all of your support throughout the years. And of course, also thank you to everybody who's subscribed to this podcast and shares and takes part in the conversations in the comment section below on YouTube. Everything really helps, but I'm really genuinely grateful for those of you who have stuck around. But what I'm saying is, to get back to my point, I can tell you information about a place, but this is information from my perspective, from my opinion, from my experience in life. My experience of a place may not be the same as what you will experience. And this is why I also recommend taking pilot trips. This is why I recommend to spend a bit of time in a place before you purchase, especially to spend like 2 years in a place before even having the rough consideration of being able to make that purchase. I don't want to take full credit for that idea. This was something that a friend of mine who's a real estate agent in Merano once said, and I was like, wow, okay, that makes complete sense. I loved Merano, but I realized that it wasn't necessarily the place that I could see myself staying long term. Would it have been a place, however, where maybe you could make an investment to make a purchase for a home and maybe have that be a worthwhile investment? Yeah, there are some places like that, but I definitely was not at the point in life where I could purchase a home. I'm still not at that point in life where purchasing a home is realistic. But These are things that I would say to take into consideration, that if you're moving to another country, do you really want to just like buy a place in a country where you've maybe spent only a couple of vacations? Like, this is another thing that I've seen so many times, is that, and I've mentioned this before, about taking a vacation in a location and going there many times, and oh, we love it. We always have the most wonderful experiences and everything is great and peachy and fine, but you're living in a bubble. You're not living in total reality when you're in the vacation mode. So spend some time there living day-to-day life through the day-to-day realities. Then you'll be able to see what it is that you will actually be okay with. Because maybe that place that you're great spending some time there during the summer is going to be a total, like, just Deadsville during the winter. That's really important to know. And I'm talking about this from personal experience. I have been through that. Not where I moved to a place because it was a place that I had vacationed in or something, but I'd lived in one of those towns where people loved going there because it's an amazing place during the summer, but everything shuts down in winter and there's just nothing to be experienced there. Again, things to keep in mind when you're looking at places that are worthwhile considering to actually live as an expat, because that's one thing I will say that I do enjoy about Braga, is that it's not just the summer. The summer can get a little busy. There are tourists who come here. However, if you are somebody who's needing to live a quote unquote real life and to have things available to you throughout the year, then there is that balance here where there are still things that happen even in the winter time. And even though I have many wonderful things to say about Braga, I will never be the one to say that it is going to be right for everybody, because I know for many people, especially that are maybe on the youngish side in their 20s, maybe early to mid 30s, maybe even singles, might not necessarily enjoy Braga to its fullest. I know there are many people who I know in this general age range who are looking for a little bit more, who are looking to be able to get out a little bit more. It's not like Braga doesn't have like bars and clubs and places that you can go, but there's more nightlife in other places. For me, nightlife and all that kind of stuff is not my cup of tea. I literally prefer a cup of tea. It's just a different lifestyle than what I need. Even though I was talking specifically about singles and people like 20s to early mid 30s, and I fit into that as a single person in early 30s, what I'm saying is that there are different individuals who maybe stand out from a generalized population or a generalized group of people, that they will have needs and interests that are different. So for me, that works. But for somebody else, that lifestyle could be completely different in what they need and what they want. So that's why, even if I can say wonderful things about this place or another place or the other place, X, Y, or Z place, that it might not be right for each person. There have even been plenty of places that I thought, oh my gosh, I would love to live there. I want to go there. I did a little trip out there and it just wasn't the right feel for me. And I've gotten very good at doing enough research online to get a good feeling of what the place will feel like in person. I mean, there was even one time, there was a place outside of Madrid, El Escorial, that I was super interested in. There's part of me that's like, I love just the feeling of that little town, but I would have a hard time imagining myself living there, at least at this point in my life. There's a lot of, I think, wonderful aspects of how cute and just out of the way this place is and how beautiful, up on top of a mountain. I mean, breathtaking views. But could I say that it's the type of place that I could see myself living day to day, going through all of the motions that you go through in life? Currently, no. It's not the right place for me. However, I know there would be other individuals who actually would probably absolutely love certain things that it has to offer, because cute town, out of the way, bit quieter. So maybe somebody who is retired or who's been through the rat race and even younger, but just needs to get away from it all, but doesn't want to be completely out in the middle of the nowhere, but is also okay to be in a place that can get a bit on the quiet side and has a bit of tourism, then maybe a place like El Escorial could be worth considering. Because like I said at the beginning of this episode, sometimes it is the smallest things that will make the biggest difference at the end of the day. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Thank you all for those of you who are supporting to help this project to be able to go forward. I'm Rafael de Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and I will see you all next time. Later.